October the 8th, we received the information from a peasant that he had seen the night before, the night between 7 and 8 of October, he had seen the guerrilla group moving around in a ravine. So early in the morning on October the 8th, I gathered some troops I had nearby. I was a captain then, a company commander of a special troops, special unit. And we started the operation. I had with me 2 second lieutenants and about 70 soldiers. So we blocked the ravine, and as soon as we had finished blocking it, we started searching it. And then the combat started. They started firing. I had 4 soldiers killed, 4 soldiers wounded. The combat lasted about 3 hours. But at a moment around noon, so 2 soldiers they were on a security post around from upstairs, seeing from upstairs the ravine, they saw 2 guerrillas trying to get away, trying to escape the blockade. So they waited until they got very near to them, and they just said halt. And they called me and said, "Captain, we have 2 prisoners here." So I went to see, and there were 2 men there. And I asked them to identify themselves. One of them said, "I'm Che Guevara. I'm worth for you more alive than dead." And the other one, and I told the other one, "And you?" "I'm a Bolivian." Said, "Yes, you are Cuba, Simon Cuba." That was his name. He was a miner. And okay, they take them to the command post. We took them. They stripped them from all the equipment they had. There. So I decided to stop searching and take all the dead, wounded, and prisoners to a hamlet nearby called Higuera. So I took the people there, and Guevara was slightly wounded in the calf, lower part of the leg. There was no bleeding, nothing. So I said, "Okay, you can walk." "Yes, I'll walk." I'll give him a soldier to lean on. So we moved about 2 kilometers from the ravine to La Higuera. We spent the night there. I took him, I sent him food and cigarettes and coffee during the night. We put him in a room and the school, the only school that was there. We put him in a room and Willie, the other prisoner, in another room. And I had an officer, one of my second lieutenants, with him all the time. Checking on him. No, that's one of the things. People have the image that has been fabricated. Che Guevara, the hero, the great revolutionary. He was, for me, I felt pity for him. You know, he was dirty. You can see that he was at the end of his strength. And see, in the end of all whatever he dreamed of, that was the end. And so he was really depressed. He was not a hero, no hero in that. But that's why the first thing he said, "Don't kill me, I'm worth more alive." My soldiers died, and I had not a single band-aid. It was very difficult for us. But they said, "No, don't worry about this." He was a doctor, supposedly, so I said, "No, don't worry about me." So we kept him the whole night there. I had several, you have read the book, I have several conversations with him along the night.
So what you asked from him?
I asked him, why did he come to Bolivia? He was senseless. Because we have had a revolution in 1952, what we call the National Revolution. And then with that National Revolution, we had the control by the state of the mining industry. That was a big part of the economy of Bolivia. We had the universal vote for women and everyone. We had changes, the land reform for the peasants. They were owners of the land now. So what was his idea of the revolution? What was he pretending to do in Bolivia? it was senseless. And I told him that, and he said, well, the revolution has no borders, but the revolution has to keep going. But what doing what? Who sent you here? No, it was not my choice to come to Bolivia, he said. Other rebels decided. What other rebels? Fidel, other rebels. He didn't try to say any more about that.
So he told that that was Fidel's decision.
It was, of course, he came from Cuba. There were Cubans with him, so it was very clear where they came from and who sent them there. But there's one thing that maybe when you read the book is not very clear, because some things that happened before, information that we got before, later. He came to Bolivia, he was sent to Bolivia to get rid of him. He couldn't go back, he had no place to go. Imagine this, he had been in Cuba, they were tired of him in Cuba. Only his friendship with Fidel kept him there, because the Cuban, the highest levels of the Communist Party in Cuba didn't like him, because he was a man who was abusive, always trying to get things done by the way he wanted everything. And so there were frequent clashes with the high hierarchy of the Cuban Party. So the solution was, okay, you want more revolution, go to Africa. And they sent him to Africa. And he was months in the now Democratic Republic of Congo, trying to help Kabila the father, who was 40 years fighting until he got to be president, and they killed him, so in vain. Well, so in Africa, and I asked him, what do you do in Africa? No, he said, they are still hanging from the trees, these Africans. So the idea he had, they are not good, there's no revolution, nothing for him, because they were fighting between tribes. Until now, they are still fighting between tribes. They have no sense of country or things like that. It was another level. So he said, so I told him, well, and why did you come to Bolivia? They sent us here. Well, he, from Africa, he got out of Africa, and he went to Prague in Czechoslovakia then, and he spent 3 months there in the embassy. He forced his entry into the embassy, but the Cuban embassy, and he wanted to talk to Fidel every day, and he didn't answer. And every day he insisted, because Fidel had made public a letter in a great, one of those big spectacles, the Organización Latinoamericana de Solidaridad, people from all over Latin America. He read his farewell letter and said, well, in that letter, Guevara resigned from every post he had in the Cuban structure. He returned his nationality, his Cuban nationality, and said, I have nothing more to do. Other countries need me, so I'm going somewhere else. And that letter, he told me also this, that letter was to save Fidel in case he was killed or captured in Africa. But Fidel made it public, and with that he closed the door. He couldn't go back because he had resigned everything he had in Cuba. So he couldn't go back to Cuba. So they had kept him there out till probably Fidel decided to do something with him, and he went back to Cuba with another document, not as Che Guevara. And there they kept him isolated for 3 months, and they're training this group of Cubans who they wanted to send them to Peru. That was the idea first. But they found that the Peruvian operation had been infiltrated by security forces. So they sent him to Bolivia. And once he got here to Bolivia...
So why Bolivia? You know, he was born in Argentina. And Bolivia is what you explained now is that even that time was a different country. So that was a wrong decision.
Of course, but he said he didn't have the power to decide. He was sent here. And once he arrived here, they cut all links with him.
And
he had no
connection
way to
with the Bolivian
Cuba.
Communist Party?
And the Bolivian Communist Party rejected him. He said they wouldn't approve because they said this is if there is to be a revolution here, it's going to be made by Bolivians. You are no Bolivian. So the Communist Party rejected, didn't give him support.
So has he got a support from the ordinary people, Bolivian, or not?
A few of them. There were about 16, 18 Bolivians in this group. That was all. There were more Cubans than Bolivians.
Okay.
But the real thing is that he had no place to go, because the last week, if you read his diary, the last week they were going. They knew they were being tracked by the army. The peasants didn't give him any help. Immediately, they all contacted the army and told them they had seen him here and there. So the area was shrinking. The area of operations.
So according to you, what mistakes they done when they organized this guerrilla activity? So you are the best person to answer this question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But why his own people told him this has no sense. Let's disperse. One here, one go try to get out of here, not as a guerrilla, as citizens. You know, leave your uniform and put a civilian clothes and try to get away. You see another thing. And he said, no, we are going on. Going on to what? To sacrifice? That's why the title of my book in Spanish is La Guerrilla Inmolada. They sacrificed the guerrilla. He was immolated. He was sent to sacrifice. And well, they wanted to get rid of him. And of course, he was be more useful for Castro dead than alive. He has used his image and all Che and all that. They created a myth around his figure.
It means the legacy, what we are calling Che Guevara's legacy, is a created one.
They created, that's right. They created it. They had no radios, no communication, no places where to leave a message, nothing.
So even it means even Fidel Castro completely refused.
Of course,
because maybe he could help.
No, they had no communication.
No communication.
The only thing they had is they heard in a common radio, Radio Havana, and they sent some messages in code, so Radio Havana. That was all. And there was one funny message. We are 60 men ready to go incorporate to your effort. Where we're going to? They didn't know where they were, how they come to reinforce him. On the October the 9th, early in the morning, the commander of the 8th Division, where my troops belonged to the 8th Division, Colonel Centeno, he arrived by helicopter to Higuera. So I gave him the report of the operations of the day before, and I turned to him the prisoners, the 2 prisoners we had. And then I went back into the area of the ravine, because we still have a group of guerrillas fighting there. Another company of my battalion had been ordered to come from Pucará and join forces with me to check, try to clean the area. So I spent the whole morning there. At about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we returned to Higuera. We had killed 3 more guerrillas in that operation, and the rest had dispersed. We just left 5 of them. There was no fighting force anymore. So when we arrived to Higuera, we found that he had been executed a couple of hours before. That the order had come from the High Command. By order of the President of the Republic, he had been executed. I didn't take part in that. I wasn't there, so for me it was a surprise. But the reasons for that are clearly explained. I had the opportunity to speak with General Obando, who was the commander-in-chief of the army at that time. And later, 10 years later, because I was writing the book, I said I would like to see why was that decision taken. And he said, look, first he said we had to do a trial, a court-martial or whatever. At that moment there was a court-martial in committee trying judging Debray. Debray was a French who had come to help the guerrillas. It was nothing, but his trial had become a celebrity cause. There was a lot of people. General de Gaulle, president of France, then call our president, oh, he's a good boy. No. The trial finished with 30 years of prison for Debray and another people. One Argentinian also was captured. Because there's no death penalty in Bolivia. So he said, General Obando told me, so we debated. We had to do a trial, a court-martial. It will be a show, an international show. It will be, you can imagine what could have been done. So we had to avoid that. Because at the end, what will be? The sentence will be 30 years of jail. There's no death penalty, so where are we going to do this with this guy 30 years? Where are we going to put him? We have no jails in Bolivia secure enough, even now. Imagine 50 years ago. And there will be always pressure, and there will be perhaps some people trying to liberate him from jail and all things. So it will be a focus of trouble permanent. So the president decided, no, well, let's execute him. And well, of course, you have to see back at that time. Even Guevara had shot about 400 prisoners in La Cabaña in Cuba when the triumph of the revolution. So the executions were normal with guerrillas and all that. They were not protected by the Geneva Convention. And human rights and all these things were not very used at that time. So the execution seemed a normal thing, you know? Of course, that helped for the creation of the myth. No, there's nothing. I asked the people there who participated in this. The division commander called all the NCOs, the non-commissioned officers who were in Higuera at that time. There were 6 of them. And they said, look, I have received this order and we have to proceed. I need volunteers. All 6 offered themselves as volunteers. They were professional soldiers and they were angry. We had these 4 soldiers killed and many others who had died before in other operations. And they said, no, we have to kill him. Okay, order and we do it. So the divisional commander ordered. He selected 2 of them. He didn't know, a general will not know all the sergeants who are in this division. He said, okay, you here and you there, to the 2 rooms where the prisoners were kept. They went, opened the door, and fired. There was no time for a speech, farewell speeches, nothing like that. Because that's an invention, that's part of the myth.
When you saw the first time after the Che Guevara's death, his body, you were not there?
No, I wasn't there. Yes. Because they took the body to Valle Grande, where the headquarters of the division was at that time.
That all happened without you?
Without me, no. They took the body by helicopter to Valle Grande, and they disposed of the body. I didn't know. I was still 2 more weeks searching for those last 5 that were in the area. I spent 2 more. That's also a very clear explanation. The Bolivian authorities wanted to be sure, completely sure, that it was Che Guevara, because there were rumors that there were doubles. No, they had 1, 2, or 3 Che Guevaras So they asked the Argentinian government to send 2 experts, one in dactyloscopy, or the fingerprints, and another on writing, a graphologist. So they could check the fingerprints and the writings of his diary to be sure that it was Che Guevara. Well, but at that time, 50 years ago, there were only 1 or 2 flights weekly from Buenos Aires to Santa Cruz. So the experts were going to take 4 days to arrive here, and in the Valle Grande there was no place to keep a body. No refrigerated space to keep this body. So they decided to cut the hands to keep them for the fingerprint examination and dispose of the body. Because it was being decomposing, after there were 2 days after he was killed. So they had to wait another 2 or 3 days till the Argentinians came, and they certified. They brought the registry of the fingerprints of Guevara, compared them, and said yes, it is, and also some documents that he had written before, letters, so compare also the writing, and that's why we were sure it was Che Guevara. He was a CIA agent.
Why he came
who
there?
had arrived the day before to Valle Grande, when they knew that the end was near. The embassy, the U.S. embassy, asked the army to have 1 agent, 2 agents really, to see them, because they said they wanted also to be sure that it was Che Guevara. So when I informed the headquarters that I had captured Che Guevara, and the commander was coming, the division commander was coming to Higuera, he came in the helicopter with him, this Felix Rodriguez. But he has written fantasies also. In the first place, he didn't know Che Guevara, because his presence was authorized because he said he was sure he could identify him because he knew them. Once he got there, he didn't know them. Because when the commander arrived, I received him, and I took him and Rodriguez to the school room where Che was. My commander said, "Good morning, would you please rise?" I helped him to stand up. They looked at him. "How are they treating you?" "Well, it's all right, thank you very much." "Okay." And he looked at Rodriguez, and Che Guevara said, "Who are you?" And Guevara said, Rodriguez said, "I'm a Cuban." "Ah, you are a gusano." Gusano, they call them, the Cubans who are with the Americans. And that's all. But he didn't know.
So what a lot of Asian countries, Asian people thinking that some kind of, the CIA participated of killing Che Guevara. So that's according to you.
It was a decision taken by the president and the high command of the army. And the president publicly said, President Barrientos said, I order the execution because it was the first thing, the best thing for our country. And I assume all the responsibility. So that was the end of it. Our government here around tried last year to make a big celebration or commemoration of the 50 years of his death. No one came.
Even from Cuba?
Just one delegation from Cuba, second level delegation from Cuba, and that was all. It's not anymore. No one even knows who. Young kids who grow with a vestige with Che Guevara here, and who was he? I think he was a rock star. They don't even know who he was. They should look at themselves. Not these myths that have been created for political reasons. They have to look at themselves and think what they can do to get a better world for everyone. And it's not with weapons. No, it's not shooting and killing people that it's done. That's what Che Guevara wrote. That was his own words.
Yeah.
And that's why I told him, and what are you doing here in Bolivia? We had a constitutional government. The president had been elected. He had been vice president before. So there was no reason for a revolution here.
So when you talk to him, you feel that he was in a deep,
The first part of when we captured him until more or less midnight, he was very depressed, But when I started talking to him, giving him cigarettes and coffee, bring more coffee, talking there, he more or less recovered a little bit of his personality, probably. He felt, because he started asking, what is going to happen to me? So he began to think, future, what future do I have? And I told him, you will be tried. You'll go to a court-martial. It's in Camiri. No, I told him, you're going to be in Santa Cruz, because the headquarters of the A Division is in Santa Cruz, so it's there that you have to be tried. Oh, Santa Cruz, and how is Santa Cruz? He didn't know Santa Cruz. We talking about Santa Cruz. So he started to see probably a way out. I myself, I have captured 4 or 5 guerrillas weeks before, and I have sent them all prisoners. So there was not any specific order to kill. He said, no prisoners, something like that. No, that's why I told him you'll be tried, because I really thought it was the way that things should be done. But well, at that time, the High Command and the President, of course, they had a vision more ample than a young captain. And they saw the consequences better than we. Oh yes, we had to. When we go to Higuera and say, okay, you're going to stay here, you need anything? And I will send some food for you, I told him. And he said, I had 2 watches and they have it, one soldier took them from me. Oh yeah, I knew the soldier. I sent for the soldier, where are the watches? Here are, give them back. I ordered him to give them back. And then after a few minutes he said, I think you better keep them for me, Captain, because anyone would take them again for me. Okay, so I'll give, which one is yours? Because there were 2 identical Rolex. He said he picked a pebble from the floor and he scratched the back of the, he made a few scratches there and said, this is mine, and this other is Tumas, one of his men who had died before. Okay, I said, okay, then I'll keep them. But when I returned to Higuera next day after he had been executed, what I wanted to do with these watches now. So I decided, I gave one the Tumas watch to my battalion commander. I said, okay, this is so you can keep a souvenir, and I kept it. Just watch. A few years later, I was the division commander at then. I was General then. So 20 years later, Bolivia reestablished diplomatic relations with Cuba after all these years. And I received the visit of the Cuban consul. We talked there and said, oh, well, I explained to him, he was going to write a book. So he did write a book about Bolivia and the guerrillas and all that. I helped him to get to the places where these things have happened. I gave him a good help. And he told me, on the watch, I said, oh, this is a good opportunity. I want to send this watch to his family, Che's family. So I wrote a letter to the Ministry of Interior of Cuba, explaining, I send you through the consul this watch that belonged to Che Guevara because he told me to keep it, but now that he's dead, I think his family should have it. I said that. A few weeks later, I received another Rolex from Fidel Castro.
Oh.
He sent me another. He sent me a brand new Rolex.
Okay.
So that's the only thing I have from him.
So that was the history.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. But
it couldn't be a disaster worse than Cuba or Venezuela, probably. Because we are a Mediterranean country. Imagine no one around us will help us. Even Cuba, that is an island, and ships from all over the world can go there, is suffering the consequences of the isolation. For us, it would have been terrible. I think probably they would have split Bolivia between the neighbors by now. So from that time.